Coach, as you said before, there aren't just Rangers fans. You've actually described them as crazy Rangers fans. Well, this week, The Athletic ran a survey, and it looks like Rangers fans really like where the progress is headed with this team. 80% of them actually said they were okay with one more non-playoff season if it meant that you were going to continue to advance the rebuild. So when you hear something like that, what's your reaction? Is your level of patience the same as the fan base's?
No, it's not. And, you know, one of the things that I think on top of our fan base being crazy is they're knowledgeable. And I think they understood the situation that we were in or have been in over the last 2 years. That being said, when you're coaching and playing, you don't think of those things. You don't think about a rebuild. You don't think about a letter. You think about winning hockey games. And, you know, if we have players that aren't thinking in that mindset, we've got the wrong players. So, you know, it's nice that our fan base is knowledgeable and they understand, you know, the situation that we have been in. But inside the walls of those locker rooms, that's not how we think. We want to win hockey games and we want to make the playoffs. And I think our guys certainly have done a great job putting ourselves in the position that we were in when this whole thing came to an end.
Yeah, Quinny, I remember every training camp when the coach would stand up and say, our expectations are this, then you all live up to that through the season. It helps just to have that as the message. When I was looking at the roster last year, it was amazing how Strome and Panarin worked out, Zibanejad and Kreider worked out. A lot of center and winger combos offensively in the NHL this year when you think of Toronto and Colorado and you can go through your teams. Is that something that you thought about before the season? Maybe something that just materialized? And how is it that you think about offense that way?
Yeah, I've usually been a big believer in trying to get your three best players together. I think, you know, I love the fact, or have always loved the fact, you want a big line, you know, a line that you can always, you know, lean on night in and night out. You know, but as we've talked about a lot, you know, there was so much uncertainty with our roster and so many new players and not really knowing what pieces we had. I think we had to let it play out, and this is what kind of transpired when the season evolved, where, you know, obviously Kreider and Mika have had a connection and chemistry for a while. Bucci, when he's on his game, and he has been for the most part this year, put him with that line. And then when you put Strome and Panarin together, those two guys just found their level of continuity and chemistry. And then obviously, you know, as the season was evolving, when we had Strome and Panarin together, we figured out who should be on that right wing to kind of complete the line, and that happened to be Jesper Fast, the way the thing transpired. So, you know, with our situation, I think it just kind of evolved as the season evolved. And obviously, you know, when you've got, you know, a core, two guys on each line, all three guys on each line, when you got two lines like that, it really poses problems for the other team.
Coach, talking about posing problems for the other team and just trying to navigate your own team in real time as you're learning chemistry and they're getting familiarized with themselves. When we watch a hockey game, I feel like for the first 10 minutes, it's very orderly. Everyone's kind of following coach's orders. And then the real game breaks out. And it's your job to adjust in real time, whether that be managing lines, sitting players for certain periods of time. Can you just take us through what you're watching in a game in real time and how you're adjusting on the fly?
You think they listen for 10 minutes? I think it's 2. So, you know, it's funny, you know, and it's really part of the learning curve at this level. I mean, you know, you have a lot of responsibility as a coach, and managing the bench in the game is a big piece of it. And sometimes, you know, I find myself, I get a little bit too emotional, and, you know, every now and then you lose your way a little bit. And it was something I've really focused on the second half of the season. From my end of it, was trying to remain a little bit less emotional and being, you know, paying a lot more attention. Not that I don't pay attention anyway, but just, you know, we ask our players to self-evaluate. And I think it's important for a coach to self-evaluate too. I mean, if we're not trying to improve ourselves, we're in trouble. And, you know, the number one responsibility you have is to have the right people on the ice, have the right combinations on the ice, getting a feel of who's playing well, who's not, you know, sitting a guy for an extended period of time. If he's not going, then give him an opportunity to get back out there to maybe if he can find his game within the game. That being said, I don't want the other coach to coach both benches. You know, I know everybody is very caught up in matchups. That being said, you don't want to let the other coach dictate who you're putting on the ice for a large part of it. But matchups are important in the same breath. So there is that balancing act.
So before you were a coach, you were a player. And just like me, when I was a 25-year-old player, I oftentimes wondered, how am I not starting right now? Why is this guy not playing me? But then when I started coaching at 35, I was coaching in Bridgeport with the Islanders affiliate. And Quinny, I can tell you, we got directive once. from up top, and it was, this guy's going to play for the next 7 games no matter how he plays because we have to see what he is. So after the second game, where he gave up 6 in the first one, 7 in the second one, the other goalie's coming to me and he's asking me, how am I not playing? And now I've got to explain to him without telling him. Have you ever been in that type of a jam? I couldn't believe that was actually the case, experiencing the coaching side. And that's how much different it is when you just get on the other side of the door.
Yeah, I really believe this, and I don't say this to be funny. I think it'd be very beneficial to players to coach for a short period of time, whether it be a youth hockey team or just to have a better feel and understanding of what the responsibilities are of a coach. And I'm incredibly fortunate. I've never been told who to play, and that's one of the things I talked about when I took the job. I think, Jeff, Chris, and I have always been on the same page of how this should be done. Part of allowing a player to grow is letting them play through some difficult times from time to time. But I think it would be very beneficial for a player to coach because I think they'd be much more coachable if they were on the other side of things.
All right, Coach. So like we do every week, we like to highlight a period of growth for your team. This week, we got to chat about that 3-game road swing. It started in Winnipeg, I believe, on February 11th. 3 games in 4 nights. You won all 3, and it was highlighted by a comeback shootout win in Minnesota. So just reflect on that series if you can and what was clicking during that time.
I just think that we were really in a good mindset. We knew the situation we're in. We knew that we didn't have a lot of room for error as the second half approached. And, I remember going into Winnipeg and realizing it was a huge trip for us in a lot of ways. And just, the way that game unfolded in Winnipeg, how, we played with such pace, got up 4-0, continue to play the right way. They get a goal early in the third. You're going to get the pushback. They get a power play goal early in the third, and we did a pretty good job of managing the third period. Then we went to Minnesota right after that, and a tough game. Minnesota had been playing well, and we didn't play great, but that's what good teams do. They find a way to win a hockey game when they're not playing great, and we hung around long enough to put ourselves in a position to tie the game late and then win in the shootout. And but I think a lot of those things had kind of been building as the season was going on. We all talk about the game in Montreal, and I think that always gave us an opportunity to stay in a good mindset regardless of what was going on in the game. I think we never felt like we were out of a game. Even the game we almost came back in Montreal. In Edmonton, we were down 6-0, and we almost came back and tied that game. We made it 6-5 with 4 minutes to go in the game, and I'll never forget the feeling on that bench. And I said to Panarin after, I said, if we had tied that game and won it, it would have been the biggest comeback in the history of the NHL. And he looked at me and said, why didn't you tell me that?
That's great.
Yeah.
So, our team never felt like we were out of a game. And, that game in Minnesota, I think it was 3-2, or 3-1 we were down late in the game. And we scored with about 8 minutes to go to make it 3-2. And then we tied it with the goalie pulled. So, as I've said earlier in these interviews, our team has never felt like we were out of a hockey game.
Quinny, when I joined the Rangers, I thought we were going to get all the calls because the office in New York and it's the Rangers, it's an original 6 team. So not the case. Yager never got a call. After Yager left, Rick Nash was the next premier guy, never got a call. At one point this year, we were laughing about the fact that the Rangers led the league in apologies from the referees. So the one that I remember, though, is the game in Minnesota when Panarin scores. He's almost skating backwards. So objectively, I thought no goal because of the movement on Panarin. Were you surprised by that one?
I was nervous watching the replay, to be honest with you. I wouldn't have been surprised if they waved it off. But again, it was called a goal on the ice. I know there's going to be overwhelming evidence that they need to overturn it. So I was pleasantly surprised that the goal stood, needless to say.